Welcome to Doing the Work, a Naples Integrated Recovery podcast. My name is Brian, and this space is for anyone who's tired of surviving the same emotional and behavioral loops, whether that's anxiety, trauma, addiction, or problems in your relationships. Around here, we cut the surface level advice and sugarcoating, no platitudes or bumper sticker wisdom. We focus on clarity, responsibility, emotional discipline, and the courage to look at yourself honestly so that you can stop repeating old patterns and start living with intention instead of reaction. Let's get into it. Today I am talking about racing thoughts, and I want to start with something important because I know how this topic can land with how I'm going to frame it. I was born and raised Christian, church, Bible, structure, morals, community, youth group, all of that. And I am not anti-faith as much as maybe I might be perceived that way sometimes because of the disagreements that I have with my mom. But I don't reject this foundation. It gave me stability, values, and a sense of order when I needed it. Some of it was delivered poorly. Some of it created wounds, developmental, spiritual, relational. And that's not what this episode is about. It's like a poor me. This is not a faith-bashing podcast. And this is not a conversion pitch. But in my 40s, I was introduced to Buddhism not as a religion, as a framework. And before anyone tightens up at that word, thinking that I want to cross my legs and wear a toga and meditate on a mountain and think I'm going to turn into a butterfly, that is not it at all. I want to be very clear. I do not consider myself a Buddhist. I'm not trying to become one, and I'm not trying to sell it to you. There is a quote that I love that I learned from a Buddhist leader that says, "Do not use what you learn from Buddhism to be a Buddhist. Use it to be a better whatever you already are." And that line matters to me because it removes an identity trap. You don't need to become something else to benefit. You don't need to reject your faith. You don't need to abandon your culture or your values. You don't need a new label. You just need tools, right? That's it. And I love tools. And Buddhism offered me was something that was not about God, salvation, or meaning. It didn't replace anything that I believed, but what it gave me was something that was practical. And it gave me a way to work with my mind. And this is where it's very personal for me, because I think most listeners know that for years, and I mean years, 15 years or more, I self-medicated. And a major piece of why I self-medicated, aside from that it felt good for the first decade or so, was because I did not know how to quiet my mind. My thoughts never stopped, ever. Endless mental chatter, endless replaying, endless what-ifing, endless self-interrogation, no self-confidence. I mean, the badge and the police job, I think, helped me build some external confidence at one point, but internally, endless chatter. And Buddhism calls this monkey mind. That phrase, when I heard it, hits me because that's exactly what it feels like. It's like a mind swinging from branch to branch, never resting, never settling, just chatter. And I didn't have language for that back then, and I also didn't know how to turn it off, so I forced it off. I would drink myself to sleep every night, or sometimes I would mix sleeping pills in with that. It's absolutely a miracle that I'm alive. That is absolutely also part of the reason that I think that there is a God. There must be some sort of purpose, because something kept me here. I should be dead. There's no question. I should be dead. Anything that would just shut that noise off long enough so that I could sleep. And that's not spirituality. That's just survival. That's all I was doing was surviving. And so here's where things shifted for me. Over the last month or so, I've started collecting some Buddhist art, sculptures, things that look like a large Buddha head, someone sitting in meditation. And I get how this looks from the outside. Some faith traditions would probably call these idols. So let me say this very plainly. I don't pray to Buddha. I don't worship Buddha. I don't believe that Buddha is divine. I don't ask him for deliverance, salvation, reverence, anything like that. That's not what it is. For me, when I see these images, they function as reminders, because without any conscious interruption, this monkey mind goes full force again, over and over and over again. And so these, for me, are a reminder to stop, to breathe, to slow down, to sit instead of react, and to quiet myself. They're visual anchors. They interrupt the momentum of a super active, hypervigilant nervous system. And the difference between that and what I used to do is this. Before, I would shut my mind down chemically. Now I do it deliberately. That's not worship, that's regulation. And so if that sounds strange, stay with me, because what comes next has nothing to do with Buddhism as a belief system and everything to do with how your brain works. Here's the part that surprised me. What Buddhism did not ask me to do was to stop thinking. It didn't promise silence or peace or relief. What it offered was something more realistic. It taught me how to relate to my thoughts differently. That distinction matters, because most of us spend our lives trying to control our mind, argue with it, suppress it, or drown it out. We can treat our thoughts like they are enemies or sin or temptation, or the devil put that there, or commandments, either as something to defeat or obey. And it's been my experience that that does not work. The mind does not respond well to force, and it doesn't respond well to indulgence either. So this is this other straw man argument that I have heard. So should you just, do whatever the hell you want? If you want to just go and live like a total hedonist, that's okay too. And that's not what I'm saying either. So when I started to learn about mindfulness and meditation, I had a lot of the same reaction that a lot of people do. Like, this isn't working. My mind is still racing. I'm not good at this. I am doing it wrong. This isn't for me because it's just not how my brain works. And this isn't because I misunderstood the goal. The goal isn't to make the mind quiet. The goal is to stop being dragged by it. That's a major difference. If you are sitting and noticing your thoughts without fixing them or judging them or following them, something subtle starts to happen. You realize, I'm not the thought. I am the one noticing the thought. That's not a play on words. The realization is destabilizing at first, but then it can become freeing, because once you see that thoughts are just events, not instructions, they can lose their authority. And the anxiety doesn't necessarily disappear. Fear doesn't necessarily vanish, and the planning mind doesn't always shut up. But for me, it can stop running the room. And this is where I need to be honest about something, because I didn't arrive at this through some peaceful spiritual awakening. I arrived here because I was exhausted. I spent years inside my head trying to outthink discomfort or outplan uncertainty or out-control my inner world, and it never worked. It just made me tighter. And I think this is like a reason why I see for some people who don't learn these skills, if they have had a history with addiction, they have to go to a meeting every day and call that their medicine because they don't know how to turn all of this off or to slow all of it down. And so they'll go to a meeting for like 1 hour of relief from their overactive brain. All of this outthinking, outplanning, outcontrolling just made my world tighter, more rigid, more reactive. And what mindfulness has given me is space, which is not distance or detachment, but just enough space to notice, hold on a second, I'm really spinning. I'm catastrophizing. I'm rehearsing an argument that hasn't even happened. I'm reliving something that is already over and done with. And that pause, that half second of awareness, that's where regulation lives. And this is where those Buddha images matter for me, because it's not a symbol of enlightenment or a religious artifact. It's a physical interruption that when my psycho brain is running, I see one of those symbols. In the same way, I don't know if anyone remembers the WWJD bracelets from the 90s, What Would Jesus Do? Which was supposed to help you pause and reflect and maybe choose a better response. When I see some of these cues, whether that's like a figure in the backyard or, the head in my office or whatever, it's a reminder, hey, Chucko, slow down, drop the shoulders, exhale, sit for a second. And that's not about faith. It's about reconditioning your nervous system, because my nervous system was conditioned to ramp up, and it can also be conditioned to settle back down. So here is the thing that some people don't want to hear. You don't quiet your mind by giving it everything it wants. You quiet it by staying with it without reacting. That is the opposite of numbing. That's the opposite of distraction, and it's the opposite of escape. It's discipline, but not the harsh kind, not one that tells you that you are gross or God's angry at you or you're not living right. Not shame. That doesn't work. Shaming someone and making them feel worse is never the solution. What I'm talking about is attentiveness. And this is where my Christian background actually helped me more than it hurt me, because I already understood practice of ritual structure, like this WWJD wristband, trying to return. So some of these concepts were not totally foreign to me, but what has changed in my 40s is the target. Instead of trying to correct myself morally, I learned to observe myself neurologically. So instead of asking, what's wrong with me, I started asking, what's happening inside of me? That shift alone really reduced the noise. It didn't eliminate it, it reduced it, and that's what's enough. Because peace does not come from silence, it starts with not being at war with your own mind. Here's what I want to land with this, because this is what matters. What I've learned over the last year is that most of us are trapped less by our beliefs and more by our own unexamined habits of the mind. We don't suffer because we think, we suffer because we don't know how to stop believing every single thought that we have is urgent, true, or dangerous. That's the real problem. And that's why I want to keep coming back to this quote. Do not try to use what you learn from Buddhism to be a Buddhist. Use it to be a better whatever you already are. That line protects against something subtle but important. It protects against replacing one identity with another. I don't need another label. I don't need a new tribe. I don't need a new moral hierarchy. I need a practice that helps me to just stay present, regulated, and not reactive to life. That's it. And I think that this is where sometimes people misunderstand what mindfulness or meditation is. It's not about being passive. It's not about being soft or detached. It's about me staying when everything inside me wants to flee, fix, numb, or control. In my opinion, that's real strength and discipline. That is training your nervous system to tolerate life, to tolerate reality, without trying to escape how awful sometimes that feels. And when I sit now, sometimes I don't expect calm. I expect honesty. And for me, a lot of what shows up is anxiety, fear, irritation, grief, or sometimes just noise. This practice is not about making that go away. It's about not letting it run the show. And here's the thing that would have changed my life years earlier if I would have just understood it. Quieting the mind does not mean becoming less driven, less sharp, or less capable. It means not being hijacked. Because I still think fast. I find myself overanalyzing and problem solving everything nearly immediately without even noticing that I'm doing it. My brain is just hyperactive. Which is why I see some clients that tell me they have ADHD, and I don't know that they do. I think they have some very similar thinking patterns that have just never been interrupted. But I don't have to obey every internal alarm that goes off. Otherwise, the fire alarm in this body is just like on all the time. Everything's a threat all the time. Every text message, every tone, every look, everything. And this is the difference between reacting and responding, between compulsion and choice, between regulation and self-medication. For a long time, I thought that something was like wrong with my brain because it just wouldn't shut up. Now I understand it differently. My mind is doing exactly what it learned to do: scan, anticipate, prepare, be protected. What it didn't know how to do was rest. That had to be taught. Slow, repetition, not drama, and this is what some of the Buddhist practice has offered me. Not salvation or enlightenment or an answer to existential cosmic questions, but just training how to sit in discomfort, how to notice without reacting, and how to pause instead of trying to override. So if you are listening to this and you come from a faith background, whether that is some form of Christianity or otherwise, I'm not asking you to abandon it. You don't have to trade one for another. You can absolutely keep your beliefs, your values, your structure, and add tools. Tools that help you notice when your nervous system is running you. Tools that help you slow down instead of escalate. Tools that help you be present instead of constantly elsewhere. Maybe even tools that help you notice that you might have judged somebody without even thinking for a second about what their life is actually like. And if you don't come from a faith background at all, this can still apply, because this isn't theology, it's just mechanics. It's learning how your attention works, how your thoughts behave, and how your body responds to stress. That is deeply human, not religious. So, when I see my Buddha statue in the backyard or Buddha painting, it's not anything mystical. For me, it means, hey Brian, sit, breathe, stop. You're chasing a thought. Don't fight it either. Just stay. Just notice. That's not worship, that's practice. And practice, over time, changes everything. Not by making you somebody else, but by helping you be less trapped by the parts of you that learn to survive in chaos. And so that is a little bit about how I am retraining myself, and all of this is how to build capacity. And I think I had just recorded recently in one of these last episodes. I mean, if you're hearing this now, it's like January 10th, but I think this is going to air in March or April. Capacity. If someone learned anything in counseling with me or from this podcast, hopefully a goal is capacity to just sit with discomfort, sit with not knowing, to just sit with being human and not needing to have all the answers, not need to figure everything out. Capacity to just be present, even in the really challenging moments. And that is enough. And that is the work. Thanks for spending the time with me. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who may need to hear it. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others around you. Remember that we're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we currently have, and we are all capable of growing past them. If you'd like to reach out or connect, send me an email, brian@naplesintegratedrecovery.com. I hope to hear from you there. And in the meantime, thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.